done whoring myself up.
Bill, to your right, Chris Morris. What's up, Chris? Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
A few of us saw Four Lions and just absolutely loved it. This movie that's coming out, I think, coming out tomorrow in L.A. and New York, right?
Yeah, a few other places as well. I don't have the list with me, but you know. We're up and down the country.
Pleasantly surprised, and Jim Norton said that he now, has faith in comedy again.
I love this movie so much because everything is such politically correct shit, and they always wreck it. And I'm like, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm loving this movie, and I'm like, they're gonna fuck this up. I'm gonna hate this by the end. I know they're gonna do it, and you didn't do it. It was like
how could we have fucked it up at the end then?
I don't want to say
give away the ending.
I don't want to give away the ending.
Yeah, see,
you know what I mean? But I will say this: it didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to go in. To me, you humanize suicide bombers, but not in an apologetic, make the people they're trying to kill feel guilty way.
Yeah, I mean, look, that kind of mission, you're heading towards a wall. So I guess you were saying you don't want somebody to say, stop the car, get out, go and have a picnic just before you hit the wall, right?
Or that we're stupid to think that people would be suicide.
That's how you would have fucked it up, obviously.
Yeah.
But we don't want to, that's a big part of the movie.
Well, there's an afterlife.
I think it could have fucked up by
right?
being Queen Latifah in it as the sassy black woman. That would have wrecked it.
Well, how about we start with this?
They could have wrecked it by making some dog shit social message that was meant to preach to people not to be Islamophobe. And there was none of that. It was just, these guys are complete bumbling idiots.
You don't want finger wagging, do you?
No.
I mean, you just don't want that in a film.
No.
If you get that in a film, go home. I mean, people should burn
I like when
cinemas
films make up my mind for me. This is just being spoon-fed.
Yeah, but no, we played it to people, right? And people put it, ask questions at the end. One or two people go, can you tell me what I think?
Can you tell me what I think?
Yeah, I know, you get that.
Can we start with what the movie's about in your words?
Okay, it's about bumbling jihadi terrorists.
There you go. That's basically what we said.
But there's so many cases where that actually happens. I mean, have you heard of the bottle rocket bomber?
No.
Okay, well, there was some trouble with ink cartridges last Friday.
Right.
Right.
The guy that made those bombs decided, because they're dissident Saudis, and he wanted to kill a Saudi prince, and he thought the best way to do this was to turn his brother into a bomb. So he had a word with his brother. His brother agreed. The bomb mechanism suppository, basically.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh no!
So and so basically he goes to see the Saudi prince, and the plan is he goes, "Hello, prince," and hits the button. But they got the dynamics wrong, because if you let off a bomb in a tent, it's very different to letting it off in a hard room. In a hard room, the explosion comes back and you achieve your aim. This is in a tent. So he saw the prince, he hit the button and fired himself straight through the ceiling. And the prince just goes, oh well, next.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure how high he got. I was talking to an intelligence analyst about this, right? But he couldn't give me the height. But I'm hoping it was over 50 feet.
Wow. So you don't hear enough about terrorists miserably, or how dumb a lot of these guys are.
There are a few videos out there that you could see of guys with like Stinger missiles that don't quite work.
Loads.
Missiles that just fall out of the front, and they're like, oh, and they just go running away from the thing. It's hysterical. Some of these, they're really bumbling.
I know
they blow themselves up. I've seen a lot of videos because they video them, and they're like, and then something horrible happens. They're like, ah.
I don't know how you feel about this. But that one you just described, they're Canadians.
Yes,
the one with the huge. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, are we going to be able to match this in the film? Because that is
really
the funniest. Funny. I mean, even if you told someone it's the funniest thing that they're ever going to see, they'd still laugh. You could never let it down.
The missile just falls out of the front of the launcher right in front of these guys, and they're all just like, ah!
It's like giving birth. Away. It's like the launcher just gives birth to this.
It was so crazy. A lot of people thought it was a fake video. There's no way this actually happened.
No, because they were scared shitless when they went running away from it.
There was a cool thing. The relationship between these guys. Like one of the guys, Omar's name was kind of the smarter guy who was running it. And then there was the more radical guy who they just wanted to shut the fuck up because he kept drawing attention to them by saying, and he's like, what did he say? Like, I'm not drawing attention. They're like, you put a Twin Towers cake outside the synagogue on 9/11. Hide in plain sight. It was really fucking...
Hide in plain sight.
The great dialogue between these guys was fucking great.
Who came up with the dialogue for the movie?
Yeah, well, look, you know, I mean, obviously I'm here, and none of the other writers are here, so it was all me.
So it was all you. Yeah, very good. You're a smart man.
There's a bit of improvisation.
Because the writing is right on.
Dude,
right on.
We were wondering, because if you notice, I think even England seems to be more PC as far as catering to Muslims than the United States even.
You mean going around and giving them food?
Well, not catering in that way. Although I don't know England. Perhaps. Just being more politically correct, making sure to not offend. It seems to be that they call it the nanny state.
It's black and white for here, and Islam and non-Islam, it seems like, for there.
It's weird, you know, because I think there's kind of, in Britain, there's a sort of submerged, you kind of like disguise your racism. I think that's the way it works. It's kind of like polite racism.
Oh, that's
Do you know what I mean?
Nice.
I think that's it. You know, there's quite a lot of it. But it's very different, you know, because I mean, there's kind of 1 million people whose families come from back in Pakistan, and they've been around for 50 years, and you know, people just tend to think, okay, well, shut up unless you make a good curry, is the kind of feeling that you get. Yeah. But I mean, it's not quite as you describe. But I think, you know, when you get kind of super liberals, they're allowed to be racist as well, but they have to pretend they're not. Right. Know? So it's kind of that's probably the impression.
Have you gotten any flack for this from any? Because it's an amazing topic to fucking attack in a comedy, and you really go in depth with it, and you show them. The opening is the guy's trying to make his suicide video, which is when they talk to camera and whatever, but the guy's gun is too small, and it just looks ridiculous. He's holding a tiny gun, and they're like, he's like, I'll sit closer to the camera, and he sits close to the camera. And they're like, cut. It was really funny, man. They show all these outtakes, and
that's great.
You really seem to have captured what these guys do.
But you get those, you know. I mean, you get those in court cases. They come up. Sometimes they stop people before they get too far, and you know, they intercept them before they make an explosive, and then you see the kind of evidence and some of that stuff. And there's guys basically sitting there doing their videos, and I mean, this is for real. And they kind of get halfway through some rant, and then they either run out of words. They're trying to describe the hell they're going to rain on our heads, and they just literally run out of words and stop and just look stupid. Or there's one guy saying halfway through, he goes, so what was the question again? Like, it really not to
So
get.
did you research some actual tapes? Like, how did you find out what they were doing?
Obviously,
there's thing. I mean, because you know, when you go to court, they're all too happy to. I mean, these guys who basically got 600 kilos of fertilizer, right? And they wanted to make it into a bomb. They'd gone to Pakistan to learn how to make it into a bomb. They'd come back. They'd had a few conversations, like conversations about who's cooler, Bin Laden or Johnny Depp. Seriously, you know, and then they realized they'd forgotten how to make a bomb. So they started phoning up Pakistan again, saying, yeah, listen, bro, the bomb recipe you told us, at which point the line goes dead. And then they're sitting around going, having ridiculous conversations. They call each other, one guy, there were 6 Pakistanis and a Moroccan. The Moroccan used to call the Pakistanis, you hairy hobbits. So he'd come into the room, and you'd hear this stuff. They had this, like, stoner conversations. Like, they didn't know what a dog, one of them had a baby, had a Doberman, and they couldn't work, they didn't even know that a Doberman was a kind of dog. You know, it's kind of really ridiculous conversations you wouldn't dare make up.
You always just assumed they were great at one take. That they did it in one take.
Oh, they had that level of passion.
Yeah.
Then when you really think about it, it's like, how dumb would you have to be to have some other guy convince you?
Yeah, this
to
movie,
blow yourself up. I'm going to keep living.
But the guy that's doing the convincing, right? He's probably got to be brighter than the guy that's getting convinced.
You would think.
So you know, that's why you get freakish things like qualified doctors sort of driving flaming cars into airports, which we had a few years ago. You know, qualified doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
You just humanized the whole thing. You really did.
Well, you love doctors. You love the doctor angle. There's engineers. There's nurses. What's your favorite
Profession?
That's
nothing but doctors. Doctors brings it around.
I mean, I'm looking at Jimmy. There's so much we want to say about this movie, but we don't want to give away a lot of the punchlines.
I don't want to blow it, but the audience, I think, knows our sensibilities with comedies, and they always blow it. And this one didn't. It was really, really funny and smart and dark. Let's just say this. There were everybody does not live. I'm only going to say that. I'm not going to say everybody does not live, and you never see a death in a comedy. You just don't see it. Every time something happens, you know, the guy gets out of the tank and he's okay.
Right.
And there are, let's just say,
He's got some soot on his face or something.
Happy or unhappy.
A couple of whoopsie daisies.
But there's weird rules about this, right? Because, you know, we all know the bit in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the guy gets the sword out and he just gets shot, right? And that's the punchline. There's some weird sort of rule. It is nothing to do with whether it's right or wrong. It's kind of, you know, there's a There's a guy in the film that gets killed, and he's just a sort of. This will sound terrible, right? He's nothing to do with it. He's an innocent bystander. He's a functionary part. But we thought we had to kind of make people dislike him before he actually goes up. You know, we had to make him do something awful before he got killed. Not at all. It doesn't matter. You know, if you haven't followed him, if he hasn't sort of been hallowed in some way in the film, you just don't care. I mean, look, the general, Buster Keaton's the general. The kind of climax scene of that is a massacre in a ravine. But you're not sitting there going, oh my God, it's a massacre in a ravine. You're going, hey, look at Buster. He's dancing around in front of the guns being stupid. You know, so it's kind of it's a weird rule that you should have to make everything nice and everybody.
It's sort of like those Corona commercials.
What happens?
There's these Corona commercials where the guy just can't win.
Right.
That whole just pandering to females. You know, she squeezes the lime because he's looking at a hot chick, and then she looks at a hot guy, so he shakes up her beer. But because she's a woman, she's got to grab the other beer. And it's just, the whole thing is just guys are dumb, which is just completely acceptable to put out there. You can never have, like, the female losing that. That's like that political correctness kind of things. Where it's just
always.
Well, the main reason is, though, because with Corona, we're going to pump enough down her dumb throat and then fuck her while she's half asleep. So we do win in the end.
Dude, that movie,
too many and clock her in the eye.
that movie, The Social Network, like, women's groups were offended the way that they portrayed it, that these nerds who nobody wanted to fuck, when all of a sudden they made $1 billion, all of a sudden all these good-looking chicks came out of nowhere and wanted
that's what happens.
No, you can't say that. They make it seem like gold-digging whores are on the same level of, like, Bigfoot, you know? Like they don't exist. And it's like, they do.
Okay, but I think nobody's going to say if you sit in front of a camera with a small gun and forget your words that's going to make you sexy. Although there is an element of self.
No.
There is an element. You know, you meet. What's weird is that you meet guys who've adopted this kind of language as street talk because basically, you know, it's the next cool thing. So they'll hang around on the street and they won't be wearing gold. They'll just be saying, "Bro, listen, man, I'm going to come and get you, and you know, I've got a big beard, and you should watch out because we're going to be bigger than Osama." And they're not. I mean, they're not. They're going to go back home and they're going to just, you know, their mum's going to give them supper and they're going to go to bed. You know?
Is there an equivalent here in the United States? Like, I don't mean as far as terrorism goes, but like a gang member or something. Is that what you would equate some of these fanatics with? Like,
I don't know. I mean, people say. These guys, they like 20 years ago, they'd have been punks or something, you know, and it's not quite like that. There's a different thing going on, but there is something that maybe happened here that's a bit similar with the KKK and, you know, the fact they got infiltrated by Stetson Kennedy and then he decided he was trying to campaign against them. He revealed all of their passwords and crazy names, you know, the Grand Dragon and all of that stuff to the Superman radio show. And the Superman radio show wrote it up in the 50s, and it came out on air, and then all the kids started running around going, yeah, Grand Dragon, and all the rest, and the KKK couldn't hack it. They said, what the hell are our kids saying this for? And it just cut the recruitment overnight. So, you know, you can feel that maybe things kind of shift in that way if you put a comedy on them.
It was really weird, too. Like, there was one line in the movie which showed you a great insight into these guys. They were talking, like, about blowing themselves up, and the one guy either said to him or he said it about himself. He goes, I'll be in heaven before my head hits the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know that's something that they say. That's a way they look at it. Like, before your head hits the ceiling, you're in paradise. Like, you know that line has really been used.
Right, do you? Okay, that's good, because, I mean...
Did you guys make that up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, that's, to me, too exact a conversation.
That's like the car salesman.
But
what do we have to do here today?
To get you.
What?
It does depend, right? Because, you know, these stories about when people were guillotined in France, and people sort of thought, I wonder if the head can last longer, you know, well, like, once it's cut off, does it know what's happened? And there were even people who did experiments, you know, doctors who said to people who are about to be executed, look, can you do me a favor? I'm going to ask you a question after your head's come off.
Wow.
Now, you've got no air coming through your larynx to make a voice noise, but maybe if you could just wink with your right eye for yes and your left eye for no, you know, kind of like, can I interview your head after I've cut it off? And then, of course, well, come on, you know, you chop a head off, I think it's going to do some weird things, right?
It probably
it'll probably do that.
Yeah.
And he goes, it does, it knew me, I understood, you know.
It's a little twitchy.
A bomber, maybe, I mean, because the head is the bit that lasts longest. And they even thought early on, you know, maybe they would have a sort of slow motion scene going up with a head. I mean, this is when the film, before we'd kind of like really sort of just spitballing, and you stick with a head, and we're thinking, what would be the last thought to go through somebody's head? And we kind of like wanted something really random, like it was going, oh, I didn't expect to feel hungry. But, you know, how long do you last after the moment? I don't know. How can we test it?
No clue.
Yeah, no one knows.
Can we test it now? It's not regulated, right?
Well,
so there's
Stevie's
no...
not here today, so I guess
I'd like
we
to
can-
see.
This is the shock to your
Get a
system.
volunteer. Get a volunteer.
Right.
Can you do that?
Oh, we got a few
In the
people
safety of satellite radio,
as well
right?
not have a
A beheading for science.
Where's E-Rock?
Hey, death threats. You worried about death threats or anything?
Are you going to make one?
Nah, fuck.
Listen, I got a death. I got a death threat for you know, working
you
on
must
radio a
have
long
huge-
time ago. Kuyanis? No, what? I thought you were going to compliment
I was gonna-
my lunch.
I was going to say
my
you
pack.
must have huge balls because, you know, doing a movie like Four Lions, I'm thinking you might get a death threat or two.
Well, look, I mean, a lot of the Muslim guys that I met during the research.